It has come to my attention, some of y'all want to cosplay, and I am rolling out the welcome mat. When I cosplayed for the first time, I had no idea the universe I was stumbling into. And cosplay has changed a lot since Otakon 2009. But you know what hasn't changed? It is freaking scary to put on dress up and be perceived. So this is what I wish someone had told me. Here's what I would tell someone in 2022 or beyond, so you can do the thing and cosplay. Like now, this month. This is my cosplay DIY recipe. I'm like the islander alone in their house making things, and you stumbled in and I'm frantically giving you the recipe card and telling you about Maglev Mike and the relationship off the rails, and I have lost track of this metaphor. I need to get back on the rails. Also, hi, hello, fellow cosplay daydreamer. I'm Lizard Leigh if we haven't met before, and I was going to take this out before the intro. God damn it. I make mistakes literally constantly, but at least I've been making mistakes for a very long time, so I have a lot of wisdom from the years of errors. And my first piece of wisdom is honestly something most beginner guides skip, but I am begging you not to. Who you do your first cosplay with is just as important as what you cosplay and where you cosplay. I'm talking people that want to see you succeed and have fun and try new things. This can be a group of buddies or a single bud. It can be online or IRL. Cosplay is inherently social. We don't do it in isolation. We do it to share with friends and make new ones. Having a support system for memes and late night panics can honestly be the difference between making it to the final boss or having a bad time and Xing out. The summer I graduated high school, my best friend and I decided we would go to our local anime con and cosplay. We didn't cosplay together, he and I picked wildly different projects. But you know, we did our Joanne's runs together. We would talk about how the research was going and brainstorm ways to make these freaking wild costumes work. Now, not everyone has a high school best friend who loves Final Fantasy and has a car. If you don't think you have friends who would be excited about dressing up in the middle of downtown, there are a ton of Facebook groups and Discords where you can find people who do. Also, your starter adventuring party doesn't have to be just cosplayers. Maybe you have a pal who's really trying to practice their digital art or get into building miniatures. You will meet more people and make more friends in this scene as you cosplay. That is a Lizard guarantee. Just make sure there's at least one friend who's got your back the first time you put on a wig. So speaking of putting on a wig, who should I cosplay is the eternal question. And listen, I have to say, I think you already know. If you have an instinct about who you want to dress up as, that instinct is probably the answer. Bingo bongo. But to get a little more specific, I would definitely suggest picking a cosplay from something that you've liked for a year or more. There is nothing wrong with jumping on trends, but your first cosplay is gonna be a much better memory if you pick something that feels like evergreen. I'm always really proud to tell people that my first cosplay was Leigh from Avatar: The Last Airbender. Avatar is still my favorite show. I watched it as it aired and it made me who I am. It just turned 17. Leigh is cheerful and optimistic and good, but somehow on the same team as the villain. I related to her for a ton of reasons, and honestly, as I get older, I find more and more in common with her and the person I was then. So my advice is to pick something that feels true to yourself, and maybe it'll be a fun crystal ball as time goes on. Don't overthink it, because if you have fun, there will be plenty more chances to try something else. Also, for those playing along at home, my best friend went with Kefka, the main antagonist from Final Fantasy VI, specifically the Dissidia outfit, so we were a really powerful duo. The circus was in town that weekend and looking good. Deciding when and where you want to cosplay is honestly the kind of thing that would have been really easy to talk about in 2019, and now it's fraught. It's fraught, I say. Local conventions used to be the answer to this, and you don't need me to tell you that some shit's happened the last 2 years. Nearly every cosplayer I know has struggled with the lack of deadlines from con schedule, and to be honest, I'm thinking about making a whole other video just about that. So if you've never cosplayed before, it's even more important to set some kind of end goal for wearing the ding-dang thing. This could be a picnic meetup with other local cosplayers, your Ren Fair when the season comes. It could literally be a photo shoot in your bedroom or your backyard. And yes, you can still cosplay for the first time at a convention. They're an option. A lot of cons have a ton of outdoor space, and I genuinely think there are ways to do things safely right now if you're on top of precautions and get informed about what scientists are saying about whatever variant is the monster of the week when you're watching this. I am not qualified to give you a complete checklist of up-to-date safety measures. I'm someone who once mixed rum and emergency in a drink at Dragon Con. No one should be taking health advice from me. The past 2 years, there have also been a lot of great online events organized via hashtag, like hashtag BIPOC Vamp Day by Black Betty Cosplay, where BIPOC cosplayers and artists made really cool vampire stuff. We've got to be a little more creative right now setting our debut deadlines, but I don't think it's entirely a bad thing to break out of the con crunch treadmill. Which, speaking of crunch, when you set your deadline goal and are trying to give yourself enough time to get things done, however long you think it's gonna take, just double it. If your brain is anything like mine, that's going to be way closer to how long it is actually going to take. And actually, while we're talking about making things, here's the part where our Elwood's library montage really begins. Some characters are going to be really easy to find references of. There's nice full body shots on their Wikia page. Other characters you might need to take your own screenshots or track down art book scans. It just varies wildly from build to build. When I'm researching, I ask myself, are there parts where the character's costume is discussed in the script in a way that gives me some clues about making it? I make a Google Doc and I pop all those in there. If you're cosplaying from something live action, are there behind the scenes videos about how things are made? Are there interviews with the costume designer? And if the character is more obscure or more original, is there something similar that's more popular that has more information floating around? When I was making my Her Universe runway, I looked up Cinderella transformation dresses because I knew theaters had been making them for decades. Let's talk about building versus buying a cosplay. Gather round, children. A lightning fast community history lesson here. As cosplay became more mainstream in the last decade-ish, companies started selling costumes from anime, video games, comics, etc. Because this is a fairly recent thing to be able to buy a cosplay, many veteran cosplayers are craftspeople because there was no other option. The longer ago someone started cosplaying, the fewer resources there were, the more they had to just make it work with what they had. Cosplayers who started more recently may not need to learn sewing or foam smithing to get started becoming the characters they love. This spectrum of experiences tends to flatten itself down into a binary of new and old cosplayers, buying versus building, and it's come on you guys, a binary is never gonna capture the whole truth. Most new cosplayers aren't fast fashion fiends for taking advantage of the resources available to them, and most veteran cosplayers aren't gatekeeping grandpas for valuing the skills they had to develop. In my heart of hearts, I don't think there's philosophical differences between these groups. I just think there's a reflection of the resources and visibility cosplay had when someone started cosplaying. Fine? So moving on to those resources. If you're going to buy a significant part of your cosplay, make sure it's from a site where you can read the reviews. Ask around in those Discords or Facebook groups we talked about to see if a vendor is reputable. Wigs are really accessible now. I really like the 5 Wits for custom character wigs, and I like Wig as Fashion for lace fronts. Local beauty supplies, eBay, got great options. I know Jeff Bezos has good wigs. I know he does, but please don't give him money if you can help it. Literally, I use Amazon as a search engine and then try and buy it somewhere else because thank you, Jeff. To keep our B plotline moving, also, when I made my first cosplay, research was taking a lot of screenshots off avatarspirit.net. RIP. So once you've got your references gathered and your purchases sorted, it is time to freaking begin the ritual. If you've been sewing for a while but are just new to cosplaying specifically, knock yourself out, shoot for the stars, make a ball gown. But if you're a beginner crafts person, my honest advice for a first cosplay is to aim for a combination of things you're making and things you sourced. I just think it's way more fun that way, and it kind of lets you set your own difficulty level. You could purchase most of the cosplay and just make a fun little prop, or you could push yourself to make most of the cosplay but let yourself buy the gloves or the undershirt. I never make fucking gloves, man. Quick aside from my labor rights shoulder angel, whenever we quote-unquote just buy clothes for cosplay, it is still made by someone. Clothing and textiles are made by people. Machines can't do it. So I just try to keep that in mind when I am making these choices. Thrift stores and online secondhand stores like Poshmark are really great to find starter pieces that you can modify into something else for a character. The craft supplies I'd recommend for cosplay honestly really depend on the kind of cosplay you want to do. Although I do think every cosplayer should own a hot glue gun. Sewing machines are a bit more of an investment, but the good news is that most starter sewing machines will last you your whole cosplay career or your life. whichever is longer. One of these would probably run you about 150 bucks, and if that isn't an option for you, ask around to see if friends and family have one to borrow. Most of the things you need to start cosplaying aren't boutique specialized tools. A few pairs of craft scissors, a box cutter or an X-Acto knife, a self-healing cutting mat, decent paint brushes, pins and needles for hand sewing, a tape measure and a clear ruler, a heat gun if you want to work with plastics. Starting with these kind of basic things is going to open up so many possibilities. Don't rush into super specialized tools until you have a better idea of what cosplay means to you. The University of YouTube and Google can honestly teach you everything you need to know about a specific crafting method. Also, I will quickly say that I do have a Discord, and we've got a ton of crafting focused channels to ask questions and a really great range of like cosplay experience levels. My most overarching wisdom I'd give to beginner crafters is that making mistakes is the best thing you can do. It's literally the best way to figure out what materials can do, and any time that's spent learning these lessons is not a waste, even if it feels frustrating in the moment. My first cosplay, I asked a family member for help, and I sewed almost none of it. It meant that my first cosplay turned out great, and I had a fantastic experience that, you know, made me fall in love with it, but I didn't really start learning lessons until I made my first cosplay the following year. And oh my gosh, did I learn some things. The one thing that will really elevate even a super simple cosplay, and unfortunately tank a really beautiful one, is styling. Hair or wig, makeup, and how you wear all the garments together. Do not skip this, give yourself time for it. It is the best way you can make your first cosplay look killer. If your face is visible in the cos, you should probably wear a full face of makeup regardless of your gender or the gender of the character you're cosplaying. That is a blanket statement, and it is one I'm comfortable making. Look up tutorials if you're like me and still feel like liquid eyeliner is like a DC 25 dex check. I said it. So lots of cosplayers do makeup tests where they practice the look before the first wear. If you can, I really recommend fake lashes for any girl or girl adjacent cosplay. Think of makeup like any other craft skill. I know it can feel weird for some people, but I promise it's so important. Every wig needs a little bit of love, even if it isn't heavily styled. The brand of hairspray that most cosplayers use has got to be glued. No further notes, just use that. Short wigs could maybe use a little volume, long wigs will probably need detangling throughout the day. Your wig is going to be in basically every shot of the cosplay, so it's worth it to keep an eye on it and keep it looking fresh. Iron or steam your cosplay before you wear it, please, as a personal favor to me. If part of the cosplay likes to slip down, safety pins and fashion tape are your best friend. I think most of the cosplays I've made involve safety pins and or fashion tape. Like, they are not for cheaters, they are foundational. Or I'm just a cheetah, one or the other. You can tell this is not prop caffeine from the number of voices that are happening in this video. Okay, that's a lot of nuts and bolts, but we need to put the hot glue gun down for a hot second and step into our mind palace. There's a lot of cosplay advice out there about the skills, but there isn't a lot about, like, protecting your joy. One thing that's really hard for cosplayers of all levels is how easy it is to compare yourself to others and feel insufficient. I spent years of my cosplay career feeling this way. The only way I broke out of it was by just like really focusing 1000% into what I, Lizard Leigh, specifically love about cosplay. These days I don't compare myself as much because I genuinely feel like what I do is unique to me. Not in the sense that I have like a special galaxy brain, but in the sense that everyone has a unique flavor palette of what excites them about cosplay. So if you're just starting, the best way to get off on the right foot is to try and do something that feels unique to yourself. 2009, time travel, Otakon, ba-da-ba-ba-ba-da-ba-ba. In Avatar, in the Fire Nation, there's a lot of references to characters eating these things called fire flakes, and I somehow thought it would be really fun to make these and give them out to other Avatar cosplayers. I found a recipe online. It was like DIY spicy cornflake gorp, and I bagged them up and I shared them with people at the con. It's not like groundbreaking to bring snacks to a hang, but it made me really happy to share things with other nerds, and everyone was so excited about canon snacks. You don't have to reinvent the wheel, just find something weird and fun that makes you happy. Another thing that's really important to protect your joy is to find and follow other cosplayers who share your identities. Cosplay is for everyone, and anyone can cosplay, but it would be totally dishonest if I sat here and tried to tell you that cosplay is a magical other dimension where all the shitty things about the world just like press pause. Things like racism, ableism, fat phobia, transmisogyny, misogyny, they happen in the cosplay community, and they can especially happen online. I'm not saying this to turn you away, I'm saying it because I think we need to talk about it. As established cosplayers, and personally as a cosplayer who benefits from a lot of those things I just mentioned, it's on us to actively build a community that walks the walk on being for everyone, and not just when it's BHM or when there's quote-unquote drama or when something terrible happened in the world. That is on us as people who have been in this community. But for y'all just starting out trying to find your community, it is so important to find cosplayers that look like you and have identities like yours. It is a truly fucking awesome thing about how big cosplay is these days that I can promise you are not like the first ex-cosplayer. Cosplayers exist and fucking crush it at every intersection of identity. Finding those people so that you know that you're not alone is going to change everything. So with our advanced psychic buffs, we are ready. There's nothing else we need to do to be ready for cosplay, and that means this is my neon. It happened. I spilled tea all over myself. I tried to sit it down so I could do the neon genon. I've had too much coffee. When the moment comes and you've done the thing and your debut is happening, I hope you just have a blast. Accept the compliments if people say they like your cosplay. It might feel weird at first, but you deserve it. Make sure you take a ton of pictures and like some short little video because you're gonna want to remember this. Also send the pictures to whoever was hyping you up in the build process. They will want to see it. Have fun, make friends. Stay hydrated as much as you can and take breaks when you need to. Wearing a costume is tiring and wig headaches are real, so look out for that bod. If you're at a con or an event, make sure you're giving out compliments too, especially to people cosplaying the same character or series as you. Actually, you should do that online as well. My first Otakon Saturday, Justin and I took some pictures in the park, and then we headed to the Inner Harbor. We walked around, we went to Artist Alley, we saw cool cosplayers, and at one point I headed over to the Avatar meetup by the fountains. I'd spent years of my life on forums talking with people about this show that aired on Nickelodeon that I loved so much but didn't know a single person in my real life who took it seriously the way I did. And suddenly I was like surrounded by people who loved the show so much that they cosplayed from it. It changed my life. It was so fucking tight. I'm still friends with some of those people. We all ended up getting dinner at the food court. It fucking ruled. I'm sure there's so much stuff I missed, but I hope this helped. I hope this makes you feel like you can cosplay, because you can. Honestly, I really want to see cosplay keep growing and becoming something welcoming and weird, and I really hope you decide to jump in the deep end. If you're like, Lizard, I already jumped. I'm in midair off the diving board. The first video I ever made for this channel is all about how to get good at sewing fast, and you gotta check it out.